Hey gang, I wanted to do a Storm King Thunder summary similar to what I did with Lost Mine of Fendelver. Um, just partly for the fun of it, partly for attempting to summarize everything that happened, although I'm certainly not going to remember everything. And part of it to provide, where I can, some behind the scenes information that I didn't provide when we were in the game and was just focusing on player knowledge. Some stuff, as I mentioned, I'm going to forget. Some stuff I will keep in the background as well, depending on what we do in the future, because there's a lot in here that I can pull into to future stuff. But let's start off right away, as you hear the clicking of my mouse, in Waterdeep, or before Waterdeep, where everything started was the letter that Ventus received, or the notification that he sent to you all to gather in Waterdeep, that he needed to connect with you there, and that he also had news of Lore's brother, who was taken or was missing from Silvery Moon. The whole point of that was to attempt to do a couple things, link in some of Ventus's background, which I believe started as that Tyranny of Dragons was over. We knew that, although we hadn't played it as players, and that I was linking in some of his background with what had happened in Tyranny of Dragons, and that there was some connection to his bloodline in that. I don't think it completely finished that way. I think it kind of morphed as we went along, but that was the general gist to begin with. And given Lore's background with Silvery Moon and family there and such, and having read into Storm King's Thunder and knowing that there was a cloud castle here, which obviously ended up being Countess Censuri, who had taken a dragon, and as written, it stated that the screams of the dragon could be heard for miles. I figured that would be a great way to tie in things and have his brother be part of a group that was sent out into the Evermoors to figure out what was going on, and then had gone missing. So just to give a couple of interesting hooks from the beginning there. Of course, you all gathered in Waterdeep and headed off to Nightstone. Nightstone was a level 1 through 5 chapter, and from information that everybody kind of gathers on the Facebook page and other things that I've read, it was probably tacked on at the end after Storm King's Thunder. They probably had thought to start Storm King's Thunder at level 5, and then maybe in the editing or producing phase they figured they needed a level 1 through 5, because it really doesn't, other than the Cloud Castle attacking it, it really doesn't join in much with the story afterwards. At the same time, it was fun to run it, and you guys may end up going back there and rebuilding the place, as per conversation on our final session of Storm King's Thunder. So Nightstone was pretty much what it was to introduce you into Storm King's Thunder and have you meet up with the other cloud giant, Zephyros, and give you leads to head off to the three main cities afterwards: Tribor, Goldenfield, and Bryn Shander. Zephyros, and then you guys went back and forth between Nightstone and Waterdeep a couple times, and actually no, Zephyros first. So Zephyros was supposed to be played as kind of a forgetful, slightly mad guy, because he was doing a lot of extension into other realms to try to figure out what was going on and try to come across some information. And what he came across was that there was going to be a group of adventurers, and specifically I think small folk, that were at the core of all this, at the solution. I always find prophecy like that a little bit heavy-handed. I kind of like the idea that we are regular, normal people in a world, and we just kind of deal with whatever comes at us. But at the same time, it was fun to play it. I had a lot of fun playing it with you guys. I enjoy, if you've probably picked it up, I enjoy playing eccentric characters, regardless of where their eccentricities come from. And he was actually supposed to offer you a ride to wherever you wanted to go, Goldenfield's Tribord or Bryn Shander, and depending on which one you picked, which depended on distance and therefore how long you're riding with them, you would have two encounters. The one encounter that you had, which was the dwarf showing up with the dragon, the shield dwarf. I think they're shield dwarfs, mountain dwarves, and then after that, there was another encounter which I don't think I ran, and I remember there was some conversation about you guys potentially, asking him for a ride or something like that, and then you guys just thought he was just way too freaking crazy and got the heck off of his castle. And I ran with it. I didn't want to. I want to railroad as little as possible. Railroad, that's kind of a bad word. I wanted to direct as little as possible and give you as much free reign as possible. And sometimes that just you guys help me create the character, or the personality of the character, just based on what you do and then what I think that character would react with. So I thought that was a lot of fun, and what it ended up leading us to is you guys headed back to Waterdeep and rented a boat and headed up the river, which gave you another character to run into, the boat captain, and got you to Goldenfields. Actually, if I remember correctly now, you were on the boat, and that's when Zephyros showed up. Because the captain reacted to that, like, what the crap was that, and if that kind of stuff is happening more often, then he doesn't want anything to do with it. Going back to Nightstone quickly, you guys really seem to focus on this Nightstone, this black obsidian stone that was stolen, and then when you got into the fire giants and the rods, Vonadods, I think you guys started to mistake the two, and I didn't really correct you because, as far as I'm concerned, you never saw the Nightstone. You only heard it described. You did see the Vonadod rods later on, and people would mess that up. Quite frankly, the Nightstone was different than the Vonadod, and as I looked into it more and tried to understand, WotC likes to place these little things into all their adventures and leaves it to the DM to do whatever they want with it, or create their own adventure off to the side about it, or something like that. And I think some of the other written adventures on DM's Guild actually play around with it and deal with it. So it was kind of interesting how your confusion as either players or PCs led that into the story, that you guys were kind of chasing what you thought was the same thing, and in fact it was two different things. And again, it's unless it's going to not, unless it's going to reduce your enjoyment of the game, I will. I have no problem with not correcting you, because hey, that's what the PCs would probably do in that situation. So you headed up the river into Goldenfields. Goldenfields was fun too, in terms of I think we have a really good balance, and we've said this before, of RP and combat, and I don't know how I keep up with you guys, but I do, and it's fun, and I just let my mind go blank, and then whatever happens type of thing. So Goldenfields was the big city, and there was, regardless of which city you went to, Goldenfields, Tribord, or Bryn Shander, there was to be an attack. And so I worked in the Tribord attack later on, that it had already happened by the time you got there, as opposed to it was happening, because again, I think it's kind of heavy-handed that all the excitement happens to happen just as you show up. It's a living world, and things move on. And I think I also touched on later on, much later on in the adventure, that things had happened in Bryn Shander. Actually, I think I did in the Storm King court, that they had heard some whispering of something that happened in Bryn Shander, and they were going to try to get more information about that. Golden Fields ran pretty much as written. I think, I don't think I can remember much. There are a couple things that I tied in there. You got suspicious of one character there. I can't remember how you shook off his trail or something like that, but there's one character that you got suspicious of, and I was leading that off into another direction if you took the bait and you didn't. And I think I made, there was a magic user, mage, wizard, sorcerer, some type of thing from Waterdeep, so I figured I would tie that into Ventus as well. I was trying not to make it the Ventus show, but there is just, since you're so close to Waterdeep, it was kind of too easy. After that, I think you doubled back to Waterdeep, if I remember correctly, because I don't remember you heading north to Barge-Right Inn or Wormford, and headed back to Waterdeep, and then headed up through Amphale and such, and Red Larch, and Westbridge. I don't remember too much exciting happening along the way. You stayed at Red Larch, and here I was starting to read up on other adventures that use this area, and try to pepper some things in there without trying to sideline you too much. But it was Westbridge, if you remember, that that Bral burnt the place. Well, we don't know if the place was burnt down. I do, but you guys don't know whether it was burnt down or not. You just know that you caused a bit of fire there because the innkeeper was making offhand comments about half-orcs. You headed into Cryptgarden Forest because you'd received some information, again, I think from the contact you made in Golden Fields, that there was a dragon expert down in Waterdeep, and that expert sent you to Cryptgarden Forest to go meet up with see, I can't remember all the names now. And I am using the official Storm King's Thunder map versus the one that we played off of, because this one had a lot of places on it that were, quite frankly, spoilers. Like here is the hill giant place that you guys went to later. So I just didn't want them on the map, so I found another one, and that's where all my tokens are that indicate who these people are. But you ran into to that. I did some reading about dragons and stuff like that, and it wasn't written in Storm King's Thunder, but either there was one in the Sword Mountains, or I knew that copper dragons like to hang out in the Sword Mountains, so I put one there, and that's where the conversation was of the dragon in Cryptgarden, which is avoiding me right now. It suggested, do me a favor and get rid of this guy out over here. I just put it in that we had a green dragon here and a metallic dragon, copper dragon here, and obviously old one here, young one there, and obviously that would cause some issues. I was a little surprised you guys didn't make it to Phandalin. I kind of thought you might figure out a way to make a side trip there just to say hi to the old gang, but again, that's entirely up to you guys. And as we went through Storm King's Thunder, you certainly kept me on my toes in terms of what you decided to do and where you went and things like that. And of course, you ended up in Tribor thanks to the Vex, I think it was Vex here. Who had some really neat layer or regional effects including making Brial a little giddy, which was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated Witchy role-playing that. That was great. And I was thinking about trying to fit Vex back into the story towards the end. I knew I wanted to bring a couple of NPCs back towards the end without making it too heavy-handed. But I just couldn't think of a way, like a metallic dragon beating up gold dragon or a blue dragon with a bunch of giants. Like that just didn't seem right and stuff like that. So I dropped that idea. And then in Tribor, you guys went, did your things there. Other than the fact that as written, the attack happens after you got there, I figured we've already dealt with that with Golden Fields. So all the way traveling up to Tribor, you heard all kinds of like refugees and stuff leaving. That wasn't as written. It didn't really talk about the effects of all this going on, but I just figured it was if the Giants were going to start laying waste to towns, then obviously people are going to start heading towards safety. And all of this was like a lot of city travel and not a lot of encounters in terms of combat, so it was a really interesting part that I remember feeling like there was a lot of role play and non-combat for a number of sessions, and it didn't really bother me. I just recognized that until we got out of these chapters and into the more counter-based chapters, that we probably wouldn't be getting back to battle maps for a while, and that's certainly what happened. From here, my gosh, I think you guys headed to Yartar. Whoops. I think you guys headed to Yartar. We didn't have a full party that day, I remember, because it was Seth and Witchy, and then that's when we were playing with, I can't remember his name, I apologize. He was around for a few sessions. And that's where you met him, was in Yartar. And again, I had a little bit of fun with the innkeeper there who set you guys up, playing him. And that's where he offered Brial a gambling coin to go gambling if he wished. And Brial just kind of had enough of this character by then, so just kind of waved him away. And again, not written in the adventure, though some of the tips that I read about Storm King's Thunder is try to introduce that coin early on, so that when you see it later, you're at least somewhat familiar with it, although it may not pop right into your head. So I thought I would just, for fun, just get it done and do it right there in Yartar. And I was just laughing my head off when Brial just kind of passed it off and moved on and didn't even pick up the coin. That was a lot of fun too. From there, I believe you guys started to track. This is where I start to lose a little bit of memory, but I believe you guys started to track the fire giants that had attacked Tribor, and that was the big semi-race through. I remember you guys did go to Morbin Shield and ran into the Zents there. Earlier on, I had the Zents playing a little bit of a role in everything. And as written back in Nightstone, the whole idea is that the Zents were trying to take over Nightstone, and that that one woman was part of their faction, and I thought it was really neat and interesting. I led a couple clues. There was one less horse rider than horses there, and a couple other things. And of course, that's when Seth's squire got taken and stuff like that, and it just just stuff behind the scenes that I just thought, well, I'll pepper this in, and if you don't pick up on it, no big deal. It doesn't change the story. But if you do, it just kind of gives you a possible hint as to what's going on, and you may kind of uncover things quicker. You didn't, and that's not lack of observation. It's just when you're in the game and you're a player, you've got so many things juggling anyways. And of course, I know what's going on behind the scenes. So what's kind of a peppered idea thrown out there isn't always as obvious to the players. And it's just, as a DM, that's what makes it fun for me, is to know that those things are there and see what you do with it or don't do with it. So after Morbridge Shield, that's when you guys went chasing after the fire giants, if I remember correctly, and you finally caught up with them near Nesme. And that was, forgive me for patting myself on the back, that was just true inspiration. That the session, so we left the session, you guys were heading towards Nesme, running after these fire giants. And so as preparing for that session, I just said, well, what the heck? Like all these towns and cities and villages have at least a paragraph or two of entry in Storm King's Thunder. So there's no way to read it all and memorize it all, certainly. So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to read up on this Nesme place, because it seems like that's where they're headed to, and just see what's there in Rivermoot and stuff like that. Well, as it happens, as written, there was a meeting between another pair of fire giants and the Zents there. So I mashed up the whole thing, because the Tribor attack, all they said is the fire giants come attack, and then they head off in a certain direction, heading back to a certain place, and then that's it. That's all they say. So I mashed those up to create the intrigue that happened there. That's where Jure got hit by the Zent flying snake, and a few other things. I think somebody went down there as well too, but I can't quite remember. And that's where I introduced the airship. I wanted the airship, actually, as written, was really supposed to be introduced as you left the Eye of the Allfather, and as you came back to the Eye of the Allfather and learned about the information from the Oracle. Let me think about this now. No, you go to the Eye of the Allfather first. You're supposed to go to the Eye of the Allfather first. You learn from the Oracle with Harshnag. By now you would have met up with Harshnag. And then you leave and do the relic hunt. And then when you get back from the relic hunt and the Oracle gives you information based on that time when you leave the Oracle, that's when you're supposed to run into the Blue Dragon, which is Imarith. And of course, Imarith is pulling pulling the strings behind everything. So she was the hidden foe that nobody really knew was the mastermind, and nobody you didn't meet until chapter 4, until you hit the Eye of the Allfather. I switched that up, and I wanted her to appear before then. I can't remember exactly why, but it just felt right. And so, and as written, Harshnag is actually supposed to kind of start to topple the Eye of the Allfather Oracle again after the second trip that you guys make there, and then it's kind of left unknown what happens to Harshnag. And then later in the book, they do suggest that Harshnag can come back for the grand finale there. And I thought, well, again, typical kind of NPC or major character dies, or seemingly dies, and then comes back at the last moment. I wasn't too keen on that. Tolkien pulled it off with Gandalf pretty well, I think, but the trope kind of gets a little tiring sometimes. So I decided, and you're supposed to get the airship at the end of your first visit to the Eye of the Allfather to help you get to the relics and stuff like that. I said nuts to it. I was going to have it pick you up in Nesme, and partly to, I don't want to say move things along. I never felt like things were dragging, but just give you more options as to now how do you get around this world. And I was laughing my head off because Seth was always saying, even back in Lost Mines, I think he was always talking about the Acquisitions Incorporated airship and him wanting one and stuff like that. And I was just laughing my head off because I knew one was coming up at some point. So I just couldn't wait to reveal that. And so I happily had the Dragon Cultist see Lore as the not the captain of the ship necessarily, but the leader of the group in terms of when on the ship. So that was a lot of fun too. I'd forgotten Harshnag. You ran into him, I think, outside of Tribor when you ran into some fire giants, and I introduced Harshnag there. He used to be introduced sometime during Chapter 3 to point you towards the Eye of the Allfather for Chapter 4. And so back here, once you got the airship, it was just fun to bring that kind of stuff in. As much as I complain about like characters apparently dying these deaths and then coming back later and other tropes and such, I do like the idea of as a DM, if I'm going to get you guys into sticky situations and possibly really threaten you and your characters, I also want to give you an out as well, and hopefully it's a momentous out. So that's when the ship came along and harpooned some of the Zents, if I remember correctly. And then from there, I think that's when there was a bunch of running around, like Zivmorven Hall to get the Giant Slayer, Silvery Moon to deal with some father stuff. Although I think we danced around Silvery Moon because unfortunately Laura wasn't available for some time, or Seth wasn't available for some time. Everlund was where you found out about the navigation, the teleportation network, and then we had some side quests because again we weren't a full party every session, so that's when we did some side quests to Hawk's Nest as well as Sunderbar or Jalanthar, I think. I remember there were Silver Moon was sending money to Sunderbar to help them rebuild, and around Hawk's Nest you had to deal with some fire giants, if I remember correctly. And then there was also something else on this side too, or if I'm maybe mixing that up with Calling Horns, where you had to deal with trolls leaving the Evermoors, and the reason that they were leaving the Evermoors was because the fire giants were after them. They're essentially recruiting trolls and such from the Evermoors. But you finally made it your way up to the Eye of the Allfather, the temple up there, and that was just a fun. That was, I think, where we finally got back to the battle maps and things like that. So it was fun just to kind of change, shift gears and get back to that. And I think going back a little bit, when you're chasing the fire giants, I think you came close to, or maybe you flew by Griffin's Nest or something like that, and you saw some stuff there. That's when there was a fort with orc heads all on pikes and stuff like that, and there was some talk about possibly popping off there or not, and you guys decided to stay away from it. After the Temple of the Allfather, again, it was a run all over the Faerun to get the relics from various places, and that's where I decided to tie in your evil alt. That was just a one-off game once that I thought, okay, here's a map, let's run this map. And then as we got talking about it, somebody had suggested, I think it was Witchy, that it would be interesting to kind of integrate it. And then that's when I decided, well, okay, if you guys are after the relics, or somebody wants you after the relics, then maybe somebody else has the similar information and they're trying to get the relics for their own needs and such. And so you guys ran around and did your relic hunting, One Stone here, and Barona's Well, and a bunch of other places, Grandfather Tree, Stone Stand, and you'll probably notice the other places as you look at the map. brought those back to the Temple of the Eye Father, and again here as written, depending on the relics you brought back. First of all, there's a little bit of discussion about this section amongst different groups that I'm in. That's a bit of a slogfest and things like that. So I gave you the option before you went out that as players, did you want to do this or not? And you guys said, yeah, let's go for it. So as written, you're supposed to get those back to the Temple of the Eye Father, and then depending on the relics you get back, the Oracle gives you specific location information to one of the giant lords. So Grudhog down here, for example, or Iron Slag, which I know you guys didn't know the exact location of, but you knew enough of it. And that's where I decided, I homebrewed it a little bit and decided that the Oracle would give you general information, which was in some writing that I gave you, and then you would use survival checks and stuff like that to find your way there. Or you can go off and get these relics and stuff. And you guys went off and got the relics, and then based on the relics that you get, then the Oracle is supposed to give you, I believe, the location of just one. Like, you get to pick. So the Oracle says, okay, you brought me this relic that lines up with Hill Giant, and you brought me this relic that lines up with Stone Giants. Which and you didn't get me the other ones, Frost or whatever. So you don't get anything about Frost and Cloud and whatever. But I'll give you Hill or Stone. You pick. So as written, you're only supposed to get one of the giant lords. But I wanted to give you the option to go to whatever giant lord you wanted to go to. And so I can't remember exactly how I did it. I think based on the relics you brought back, you got exact locations to those giant lords, and the relics you didn't bring back, again, you had a general description of where they were, but you would have to find it based on survival checks and stuff. So from there, if I remember correctly, and you might have done a little bit of stopping off along the way, but essentially you headed to Grudhog next. You came from the north, if I remember correctly, through Belaird, if I'm naming that right. I think you landed the airship kind of outside of the town or something like that. Grudhog was funny. Holy mackerel, was it hilarious. I didn't do I didn't do more preparation for it than I did for anything else, but I was prepared, and I knew that this was going to test you guys. Any of the giant lords were going to test you, even though the hill giants were the weakest of them all. And I was worried about a player going, or a PC going down. I was worried about potential death and stuff. And then you bastards cast invisibility on all of you guys and just walked through the damn place, and then caused a lot of havoc right at the end and grabbed the conch and off you went. So I just I posted that on the Facebook group afterwards, and I think another DM went through something similar with his PCs either before or after. But I just that was hilarious. Once again, plans don't survive contact with the enemy, or in this case with the players. After the Hill Giant, you guys did a lot of soul searching about whether you just blow the conch and go to the Storm Kings, which, funny enough, as written, that's what you were quote-unquote supposed to do. But again, I got to see it from the player's perspective, that you guys chatted about it and said, well, gee, if we showed up at the Storm Kings, at this point, I think you guys were level 6 or 7, you might get the shit kicked out of you guys. And so as a DM, I knew how things were going to go, and as written, you could go there after the first conch. But as players and as PCs, you guys were scared and worried, and I never even considered that, but rightly so. So that's when I think, again, you did a little bit of traveling around. I think you went back to Silvery Moon, I think. had some daddy issues with Lore and his dad. I had a lot of fun role-playing that, and I really appreciate Seth giving me latitude there. Again, I just did what I thought the NPC would do based on Lore's background and stuff like that. So I played him as somebody who just really wasn't going to give Lore much rope, if any. And I just straight up played him as a bastard, quite frankly, and made it really hard on Lore, which part of me felt bad about, but the other part felt it was kind of true to what was going on. And again, as a DM, you gain things, but you also gain them through trials and tribulation. I always, without trying to meddle too much, I do always want to try to have it such that people, when they achieve something, it was well fought. For example, the Giant Slayer weapon, which we'll get into later. So I remember you guys doing that, talking with Daddy and stuff like that, and I think that's where it came up with about if you deal with the Evermore's issue and find out what's going on there, then maybe you can get some help from Silvery Moon. That led you to Countess Censuri, which again I was really looking forward to that one because when I started this whole thing and had Lore's brother head off into the Evermores to go after what ended up being Countess Censuri torturing the dragon. I didn't make a decision. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that the brother was off there and captured. But as we moved on, and it was probably months until we got here, like in real time, it just became. I'm remembering. I think it was JMS. John Michael. I think it's John Michael Straczynski. I think his first name is John. Babylon 5 fame, and then later on wrote Spider-Man comics and things like that. He said, I think about Babylon 5, that he just came to the realization that that character had to die, and he hadn't included it or thought about it in the beginning, but he realized that this is the way this has to go. And it just kind of occurred to me that Lore's brother's dead, that they killed him, and that led to the epic battle on the bridge there. And again, very few times I really want to try to meddle and make a certain thing happen, but whether it's for my own fun or ego or whether I just think it's a really great theatrical moment, I really try to push things down a funnel. And I really, 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 really wanted this Cloud Giant to pick up Lore and ask him if he could fly, and then tell him that his brother did, and then chuck him off the bridge. I wanted that to be the reveal of Lore's brother, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I really did, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did, and that you guys were receptive to it. But once again, if I'm going to put you guys in danger and threaten you, not from decisions of your own, but decisions of mine as a DM, then I also want an out, and the out was cloth, and that was fun as well. And it probably, for the most part, saved that whole encounter, because you guys pretty much TPK'd at the end of the first round of that encounter, when you guys were up a level and the giants kind of took you out, and those invisible stalkers and stuff like that. And I always, you can't remember everything, and as DM, you're juggling a million things, so sometimes you slip up. And at that time, I didn't consider that just because something's invisible doesn't mean it's also quiet too. So actually, I never did run stealth checks on them and stuff like that. So I kind of felt a little bit bad that they got the jump on Krev and Brile, but we I don't lose sleep over it, because I know that in D&D we all make mistakes, and we all don't remember rules exactly, and you get wrapped up in the story, and it is what it is. But yeah, Cloth pretty much saved that one. I didn't expect that to be. I didn't think that was going to be anywhere close to TPK, but it was also a lot of fun, because the party ended up getting split. Lore jumped down and followed that one giant, got captured. Krev via Jureg freed him. Like, all that was just, it was, again, just because I'm the DM and have the adventure book in front of me, it doesn't mean I know where this stuff is going, because you guys, D&D is a shared story, and you guys create as much of it as I do. So with Krev and Jureg, with Lore splitting the party, and then Krev and Jureg and all that kind of stuff, man, that was a lot of fun. And that whole encounter, that back and forth, like Countess became, for quite a number of sessions there, the foe for Storm King's Thunder. You knew this other stuff was going on in the background, and giants were roaming around in the court and the ordning and stuff like that. But just for those handful of sessions, like, that was, there was nothing else going on in the world except for one elf's hatred of a giant and what they did to the brother. And that was another really memorable part of the adventure, for so many reasons. For like all the decisions that you made, and again, Laura getting taken prisoner, and Krev via Jureg freeing him, and then the battle that ensued after that, and then getting back to the Cloud Giant Castle, and the whole standoff with everything, having all of Lore's equipment and stuff like that, and sometimes I feel like I was really trolling Seth, and I certainly wasn't, and didn't mean to. But again, choices have consequences, and the way Seth played Lore, which I thought was fantastic, Seth, in terms of how, act first, think 10th kind of thing, then that sometimes creates consequences, and so whatever situation Lore would put himself in, or Seth would put Lore in, I just hopefully reacted the way I think the NPC at that time would react. And Countess Censuri was a bitch, and she would certainly take advantage of that. And that, of course, led us to Storm King's court, because she blew the conch and got the heck out of there, and you guys did the same. So I guess I kind of pushed you into the court, but it felt really natural, and it was exactly what Censuri would have done. So that was kind of neat. Going back to the ordning, just before we get to the Storm King's court, I guess as written, it did give some information on how to. It didn't necessarily say, just slowly add information about the ordning. Zephyros had some information about it, and some other people did too. Maybe Harshnag, I can't remember. But I just thought it was a little bit more neat and natural for you guys to learn it organically. So I didn't have any one character have all the answers. And as we went through the adventure more and more, I felt that, until you get to the Storm King's court, unless something else happens that made it the right time to provide as much information about the ordering as possible, I decided that it would be pieces of a puzzle, that you would just pick up this piece and pick up that piece. You picked up quite a bit at the Oracle. The Oracle, obviously knew a lot, so that's probably where you really maybe got most of the information. Then the rest of the pieces of the puzzle at the court. So that was a decision I made too, and given that your knowledge of the ordning, how much or how little you knew about that and what was going on, in my mind, didn't affect the adventure at all. Because stuff was happening, giants were running around, running amok, doing crap. It didn't matter how much you knew or didn't know about the ordning and what was going on, and King Hecaton and all that kind of stuff. So I just made the call that it would come to you in bits and pieces until the Oracle, when based on the questions you asked, you got certain information, and then of course the court. So after that, like, I think the role play just really ratcheted up after that. It just really, not that it wasn't interesting before, but it got really, really interesting afterwards. And I think it's because it was just a culmination of everything that had been built beforehand. And when I say built, again, I don't mean me, I mean us, because again, D&D is a collaborative story that we all build, because you guys don't know what I'm going to do and what the adventure's going to do, but flip side, I don't know what you guys are going to do. You guys could have just, headed off somewhere else and just said nuts to it all. So yeah, when we got into the court, like, my gosh, that was a lot of fun too. And again, like I find it best just to open my mind, clear my mind, and just decide what these guys. I've got a little bit of guidance from the adventure, of course, or maybe even more than a little. But in the moment, I forget half of that stuff. I forget that, for example, Countess Censuri's brother was not supposed to be kill happy like Countess Censuri. He was loyal to his sister, and he was loyal to his sister, but certainly not as kill happy. Well, all that went out the window when the whole bridge thing happened, because, and I can't quite remember. We kept saying the brother was the person that threw you off the bridge, and actually, as I go back and remember, it wasn't. Her consort threw you off the bridge, and then the consort was killed later, I think, and the brother was around. But who cares? I forgot that the brother was supposed to act in one way. Well, that's not the first and last time. And who cares what's written? It's whatever works well at the time. And whatever comes to mind, and the more I sit there and try to remember exactly what the adventure said and how it's supposed to go, just slows down the game. So you got to say a lot for WotC for writing these adventures and putting all the detail in they do, so that when you are strapped for something, you can always just flip a page and find it. But if in the moment something comes up, then you go with it and run with it, and everything's great. So same thing back at the court. That wasn't written. Countess Censuri wasn't supposed to be there. None of that was part of it. You were supposed to show up. There was going to be the giant lords that were there, trying to find out from Sarissa where she stood on everything. The sisters were backstabbing. They didn't want you in the court. They wanted you in the so they led you to the room while they figured out what to do with you, and what they meant by figuring out what to do with you is how are we going to plan how to explain away these player characters, and their plan was to tell Sarissa that you had come to kill Sarissa, and that you were part of it is helpful that Lore, and I think Ventus is also somewhat connected to Lord Alliance, but Lore with his Lord Alliance cape, because the death of the mother was pinned on the Lord Alliance, and the capture of Hecaton was assumed to be the Lord Alliance. And I thought it was really, really funny, just by happenstance, that just before you get to the court, or a few sessions before, Lore gets stripped of all of his gear. And so he doesn't have his freaking Lord Alliance cape with him. Now, Censuri had seen it, so she had no problem letting them know that Lore was part of the Lord Alliance. But I was waiting for the moment for you guys to show up, and there's freaking Lore with his Lord Alliance cape, and all the stuff that would ensue from that, because as far as they were concerned, the mother was killed by the Lord Alliance, but that didn't happen in a way. It still happened with Censuri and her information, because she had seen Lore dressed that way. Going back to Censuri's castle, I love the fact that you guys were led through that one treasure room. It was the easiest way to get you to where Censuri was, but it also was a little bit of justice to have you go through there, and you guys rightfully picked up that, hey, there's a lot of good stuff here, and you went back and just totally ransacked that place. Oh my gosh. So the court, all kinds of hell broke loose there. It was pretty much as written for the most part. Imarith was not supposed to turn into a dragon. She was supposed to just say something that tipped off that she was, I guess, a dragon, or certainly connected with everything. But again, I that kind of fell flat to me in that I thought this was a great opportunity, especially with her ability to teleport. That I thought it was a great opportunity to showcase that and have her change into the dragon after she realized the gig was up. I don't know why. So, I don't know why she didn't teleport just on her own, because she has the teleport spell. Maybe I wasn't on the ball or something like that. I can't remember. But so that's why I had them head to that room in the south, which is for all intents and purposes, a magical room that they can use for teleport and a few other things, sending spells, I think, and stuff like that. You were actually supposed to attune to it over an hour, or maybe it was 24 hours, I can't remember. So I homebrewed that and decided, no, teleport would be kind of always on. That's how the Giant Lords got out of there. That's how the Giant Lords left to go back to wherever they wanted to be. Because, quite frankly, I needed a way to get Imarith the heck out of there during the fight. And again, why I didn't remember that she innately had teleport. Or maybe she did. No. She tried to teleport. That's when Ventus counterspelled it or something like that. I think that was it. And Sinceri's brother, Sinceri got to the teleport thing, and Sinceri's brother, like, I made this decision that they had to be in the middle of that room to teleport out. They couldn't just be at the edge. Sinceri's brother made it to the edge, and I remember there was a thought in my brain just thinking, you know what, let it happen. Like nobody knows that that's what I homebrewed, so just, have him teleport. And I just thought, no, I decided it's the middle of the room. So, gosh darn it, he got one turn away from the middle of the room, and somebody did something and killed him. So poetic justice there. My gosh, what happened after that? What did happen after that? Courts. Just going back. So you went into that room and then you came out and you got beat up by the Giant Lords. That was as written too, and that was probably the toughest part of the whole adventure, because as written, you were attacked by the Giant Lords because the sisters told them to, and especially in the Storm King's court, a giant would not go against a higher level giant. But I thought, and there was some written stuff that if you guys happen to mention this or happen to mention that, you can roll a check depending on the Giant Lord. Like if you mention dragons, one Giant Lord who hates dragons, you could roll a check about that. So if you mentioned like Imarith or the blue dragon at the Oracle, because you didn't know Imarith at this point. And if you said something else, then you could roll a check against another Giant Lord. And I'm just thinking, well, if this doesn't happen, you guys don't know to do this, you're going to get killed, as far as I was concerned. Like you're up against 4 giants, and I just couldn't, like somebody was going to die at the very least. And I just kind of thought, even though I know it's deadly encounters and all that kind of stuff, I thought that was I hate to say poor writing, because WotC does a great job, not completely thought out. So I decided that once the sister Miriam, I think it was, left, so the the Giant Lords would do whatever they were supposed to do until Miriam left, and then because they had heard you talking or mentioning stuff previously up in the main room, then that's when they stopped the attack and essentially said, look, we were doing this while Miriam was here because we didn't want her to know. But now that she's gone, spill the beans type of thing. So I homebrewed homebrewed that one. So after the court, the other part is the sisters actually, when Imrith reveals herself, the sisters actually try to escape. Or no, one goes to her room because she feels that the court is hers and she's not going to leave, and the other one tries to escape. But I think you both tackled them or somehow stopped them from escaping. So that kiboshed that part of the adventure in terms of as written. But again, you just roll with it. So I decided, and as written, just jumping ahead to the end of the adventure, as written, there is one giant that is one storm giant that is sympathetic to Miriam, actually in love with her. And so I decided, okay, well, he's going to help her break out. So that's why Miriam is now on the run. So the court happened, and you were given the coin and told to find out what information you could. While they took a few days to find out where Imrith was. And I knew you guys, like, as players, had forgotten about the coin, and quite frankly, I was just kind of laughing behind the scenes. I couldn't wait for you guys to get back, and Uther saying, so what about the coin? Not to, again, troll you or throw you guys under the bus, but I just, sometimes your DM's got to have some fun too, and that was a place to have some fun. So that's when he sent the sending spell. So you guys did your Silvery Moon stuff in the airship and beat up some hired help. Oh my gosh, you guys are assholes. Beat up some hired help, and that was again a lot of fun, RP and all that kind of stuff. Of course, none of that's written. There's the airship, the hired help. Well, the airship is, but the hired help, Laura's father, being followed, being told not to bring the dragon back into town. All those type of things. That's not written because the adventurer didn't know you were going to do it. So again, that was a lot of fun of role play, and I really enjoy the balance there, because combat is fun and stuff like that, but it can be mentally tiring because you're juggling a lot of things, especially as DM if you got a lot of NPCs on the go. But it also there's not a lot of characterization, like in my mind. Like they just, the NPCs do what they do, they hit and stuff like that, and that doesn't mean there can't be role playing characterization during combat. Like lay down your arms and that type of stuff. But obviously, when we're out of combat and we just allow the world to live and grow and be, then it gets a lot of fun. So that Silvery Moon exchange was a lot of fun, and led me, again, places that I didn't know were going to go. And now you've got an airship with 3 hirelings, and a one of those guys seems to be a real go-getter, and it's just going to be fun potentially role-playing him in the future if we continue with some of these characters in the airship and stuff like that. So you did your thing. That's when you got the sending message from Uthor to say, we found Imrith, come on back. As written, you were supposed to go off and deal with Hecaton, and you didn't, and that's fine. Quite frankly, like, why do you have to? Why? There's nothing in the adventure, or regardless if it was in the adventure, there's nothing to say that you absolutely have to do that. Like, you're going to go get the scepter. You're trying to help them that way. So that was a chapter, actually. That was chapter 11. So you skipped a whole chapter. But you also, if you want to argue it, you also skipped a couple other chapters because there's other giant lords out there, and each had their own chapter, but you didn't have to, quote unquote, have to do them. So you went back to court, and that's it was around that time or just before that when you went back to court that I had this epiphany of how to bring Ventus's background back into the story, and it just seemed to fit perfectly. It was like, oh yeah, and that's when I got talking to Ventus or Vorpal about, are you okay if I do something with your character? that would mean that you wouldn't be able to play Vorpal or Ventus for a while. And without having any more information than that, Vorpal was good with that. And so I started laying the groundwork, and I actually kind of hesitate to tell you how much work I put into it based on what happened, but I would go to sleep, and a lot of the stuff with D&D, I will go to sleep at night thinking about and just what happens if we do this and what happens if we do that, and then these spark of ideas would come up. So I spent a few nights going over that over and over in my head. Okay, this is how it's going to go. This is what the Duchess is going to do. This is how she's going to set up the encounter. And I thought for certain Brile was, or Witchy was going to roll a insight check, because Witchy/Brile is always paranoid. And I couldn't believe that we got through all that without an insight check, because I was concerned about that. Because what happens if you failed the insight check? And so the whole point was, obviously there was a little bit of planning by the NPCs going on behind your backs. And I stand by the change we made, that when we ran that session, and it was a challenging one in terms of you guys were waiting for the fight with Imarith, and I threw a curveball. I got so focused, and we've had this conversation. I got so focused on this great idea, which I still think is a good idea. I just implemented it incorrectly or at the wrong time. So I'll recycle it in the future and potentially do something about it. But you guys went back to the court. You headed off to Imarith. Again, there wasn't really much guidance other than the fact that you get back to court, apparently after hopefully finding and freeing Hecaton, but again, you guys skipped that, and that's fine. And they just say that basically they found Imarith or whatever, and I just thought, like, that's kind of silly, like that's kind of hand waving. So that's where I decided that they were going to scry on her and try to find her that way. And even that's a little bit of hand waving, because really, they knew she was from the desert and stuff like that. But really with scrying, like if you scryed long enough, I guess you could see somebody leaving an area and landmarks and stuff like that. But obviously, sometimes you just move the story ahead and hand wave it, and so that was my way of hand waving that, is that they scryed on her and found her. And then you guys headed out, had some role play about the Giant Slayer weapon. Again, I made the decision that you guys stole that thing. The Giants were going to give it back to Lore. The Giants said, look, once you do this for us, we'll give this back to you. And then, of course, you guys went and pulled a fast one on me. But I made the decision that, look, they're going to notice this thing missing. Like, it's not like it was chucked in the back of the storeroom or something like that. So that's created the role play with the Stone Giant Lord, Braxel, and Lore. And again, Lore or Seth threw me a curveball. I was certain Seth was going to go, all right, here you go, type of thing. And I had it all set up that when he would get that back during the fight with Imarith. But it worked out fine. Actually, it worked out pretty well the way it worked out, because we ended up retconning a little bit of that, the Fire Giant stuff. And then the rest you pretty much know, because we just did it last week and earlier today. But if you come back and listen to this video months or years down the road, you won't maybe have remembered. The fight started out outside. The gargoyles and the trebuchets, I was told was a bit of a slog, and it was, but not terribly so. That the fight with Imarith can be a little bit of anticlimactic, especially with the Giants, because as written, you go with 3 or 4 Frost Giants, including either Sarissa or Hecaton. But I wanted to throw in the Stone Giant and Fire Giants for what I was trying to plan. And and so it can be anticlimactic with that and the giant potion and all that kind of stuff. So I was actually kind of happy that you guys left the giants up on the surface. I don't know if you guys did that purposely. That you kind of figured, look, we started this together as 4 PCs. Let's end it together as 4 PCs. Maybe you just didn't trust them. Who knows? But I was kind of a little bit happy, and I had it in my back pocket that actually I was planning on having those Dust Devils show up again, because they would have, and started fighting the giants. And I was going to mention that, but we seem to have a good thing going with Imrith, and I just didn't want to take away from that. I was going to mention that, do you want to flip back and forth and have you guys fight the giants and the Dust Devils, and then fight back down, or just have the Dust Devil fight off screen, as it were. But you never went back to the giants and never talked about bringing them in. So I didn't broach that topic, and I just added it at the end that yeah, the Dust Devils would have come, and that's how Braxel and the Duchess ended up getting killed, because they were way far down in hit points. Excuse me. So you dealt with the surface level stuff. That's when I brought Harshnag back in. I knew I wanted to bring some NPC back in. Like I said earlier, I had considered a few different things. I considered Vex, but I just couldn't quite work it. I don't know if there was another NPC that I had considered. But Harshnag was the right choice, because he was one of the first NPCs that you interacted with that stuck with you, spent some time with you. It just felt right to have him come back. So the idea was that as you guys were attacking from the front, Uthor would have had contacted Harshnag and told him, and this was the conversation that Seth and Lore and Bryle had overheard from the Stone Giants, that where is he? Uthor told him to stay hidden. I trust Uthor, so he will be here. So that's what it was referring to, and I did state it in a way that was kind of vague, that you didn't know whether I was referring to Uthor or somebody else or something else. But Uthor had contacted during the days that you were in Silvery Moon to Harshnag and said, "Look, here's the plan. I want this to I want this to go as well as possible. So they're going to do a frontal assault. Once they get the attention of the Gargoyles and the Trebuchets, I want you to fly in from the other side and start taking out the Trebuchet." I did have it in the back of my mind that Harshnag may die, and that was going to be, unless he was healed by you guys and whatever, that was going to be okay, because death of characters or NPCs is never a bad thing. It sometimes can add to the story, and it's part of life. And then you guys hopped down into the lair there and started dealing with stuff down there. The Yanchi, there's a reason that they were there, which I don't think is a really big secret, but I'll just leave it in the back pocket. And it allowed them to soak you up a little bit while Imrith did some stuff from a distance. She had regional effects that came into play. The Dust Devils were part of that. She had lair effects, which was the lightning arcing across certain sections, and it wasn't specific sections, but it had to be it had to be between two solid surfaces that were 120 feet of each other. So in some cases, in some of the larger rooms, you guys were actually fine. And the idea was to drag you, lead you over to the collapsible area. That was the other lair action, is she could have part of a ceiling collapse on you and hit you and bury you. But there are collapsible areas that she could trigger in the lair. And I only got to one. Well, actually, part of the ceiling fell on Ventus, but Ventus got out of the way, and in the collapsible area with Lore and Bryle, because they do a lot of damage and they also bury you. So now we're into suffocation. You're blinded, and you're into suffocation, you're blinded, you're slowed in movement, and you are and you get into suffocation. And I was looking forward to it, not in terms of hitting or hurting or killing a player, though that could have possibly happened, but in just there was so much stuff going on in Imrith's lair that was different than any other fight, that's why I wanted to bring all guns to bear, because as a player I think it would have been interesting and exciting that I didn't know, or I wasn't aware, or it's not a goblin with like everybody's got a freaking bow and a scimitar, whether it's a Yuan-ti or a goblin, and that tends to be the fight, and then of course you can throw some magic in there and spells, but Imrith just had some really neat stuff going on, and I wanted to bring it all to bear as much as possible. But the fact of the matter is, she was really worn down from the surface fight. She was supposed to flee back in at half hit points, and it seems that I have this thing when things like that are supposed to happen in combat. I leave the NPC in combat until about that point, like half hit point, and then I start figuring out how to get them the heck out of there. Well, then you guys get a few more chops at them, and now they're a lot further than half hit points, and I think she was actually about quarter hit points by the time she got out of the surface stuff and teleported away. So a lot of that had to do with the fact that she was so down in hit points that I knew that if she took you on face to face, you guys would kill her pretty quickly. And I really wanted to play around with the burrowing and stuff like that, and I got a little bit of that in there. But a couple things happened. One is you found her treasure, so she would go after you. She'd be all over you on that one. And the banishment of those things. I'm like, geez, these guys get one round and you banish them. So that's always fun. So I just figured partly that she would charge you with based on that, and partly I think we had done everything we were going to do in that layer. I think we were going to have done everything that you were going to do there. And anything else would have just been repeat. You might have gotten squashed under the collapsing ceiling or the collapsible areas and suffocation, and how do you find the character and pull them out and stuff like that, and quite frankly I was looking forward to that happening, because I just like putting you guys in situations and seeing what you do with them, because you are so amazingly creative with them. But I just figured, you know what, it's just going to be a lot of runaround to get it to happen, and you guys gave me a perfect excuse. You found the treasure, which funny enough you ran right by after Imrith a few rounds before that. So it was a good chance for Imrith to charge in on you, and she failed on, or not failed, but she didn't get any of her recharges. My gosh, I couldn't believe that. I was rolling for recharges and I never got a 5 and a 6, because that would have done you in. So Lore did the crit. It was a crit, right? Yeah, Lore did a crit to finish her off. That was amazing. And then you got a bunch of magic items and coins. You might have gotten a few more magic items than you should have, because I messed up on the fact of how well hidden those sarcophagi were. But what the hell? It's all fun and games. And then the final return to the Storm Court, pretty much that part, there's nothing written about it. All they basically said is it's up to you to decide. Is the ordning? It's up to like the DM and the players. Does the ordning get put back together? Does it not? Does the ordning get changed? Do the PCs even side with the giants? So I just decided that, you know what, there's a lot of strife and stuff going on out there, and the giants. Some of the giants have had a taste of upending the ordning, and the king is still missing. There's a new queen on the throne. There's been strife in the court, in the family with the sisters, and one of the sisters has escaped. So nothing gets tied up with a pretty bow, quite frankly. And so there's still crap to deal with out there. And it also gives us fodder to have fun with down the road. And then finally, when I heard about Tomb of Annihilation and they announced the story and what it was going to be about, which the information came out as early as June. I think it was June. And I understood what the main gist of it was and how it was affecting people and stuff like that, and how it affected, and the whole point was, and you've already got this, I think, from today's session, but you'll learn it soon enough in Tombs of Annihilation, so I don't mind giving it to you out of game, is that those who have been resurrected in the past are dying. So when that happened in June, I realized that I wanted to start peppering that into the adventure. So that's where I put it in. I thought, oh my gosh, this works perfectly because Lore has been resurrected. Brial was part of that resurrection. Beyond just, it wasn't a spell that, okay, I'm going to bring you back to life. There was a connection there. And I won't go too far into that connection because I don't think Witchy or Brial has really revealed much about that, although I think some of you have guessed on it. But I thought, based on how that happened and the connection and who else is involved, it just was, again, just one of those perfect things that just slotted itself in. So that's when I started giving Brow the visions of speaking with this person, and this person obviously is, to say doesn't care for Brial or stuff. I don't know if it's exactly that. I don't want to get too much into it. I'll allow it to come out as it comes out with Brial and Witchy. But certainly doesn't mind yanking chains. And that's when started laying the clues that they are all dying, and he is dying with them, and you are tied to them. Well, they are all dying is everybody that's ever been resurrected is dying. And again, you learned that, I think, in this session, or you're going to learn it soon enough anyways. And so they're all dying. Anybody who's been resurrected is dying, is ill. And he is dying too. Well, that's Lore, and you are tied to them. Brial is tied to what happened with Lore, and so that was again unwritten, but it was just my way of tying into Tomb of Annihilation. And the max hit point thing is I may not have the rules exactly straight, but I've got enough of it that does come from Tomb of Annihilation. So I thought that would be a perfect way to tie it in. Ventus's visions were part of his backstory and what I was trying to do with the fire giants at Storm Kings, and I'll repurpose that sometime later. And I feel so Laura got some time there, Brial got some time, Ventus got some time, and I did have some stuff a little bit for Krev, and I kind of feel bad that I just kind of kept forgetting to work some of it in. So I did add it to the end of this last session, so hopefully it didn't feel too shoehorned, but I remembered it as we're dealing with all this stuff, and I didn't want to forget it again. So that was the deck that you played into my hands when you said I want to try to commune with Oberon. Well, I had already decided that when everybody else was sleeping and having these visions, you were going to have a vision from Oberon, saying that I can't remember exactly how I put it, something along the lines of you have completed my task, or when you have completed my task, come home. And and then that's it. I thought I had something else there in my mind, but that's basically it. So I know this has been a rambling thing. I meant to mention at the beginning that one of the things to be warned about is that this is not pre-written, so it was going to be rambling and could take some time, and I now see it's taken an hour and 20 minutes. But it was fun for me to do it, and if you listen to it, great. If you listen to it over pieces, that's awesome too. If you listen to a bit or whatever, who knows. But it has been a fun go at it, and I appreciate the gang because I don't always know what's going on, and so you guys allow me to kind of roll with the punches and make things up and make mistakes and forget things and have it start off one way and then turns into another way. But I've always stated about D&D, I came up with this philosophy probably in the last year, which is, hell, if the players can make it up, then the DM's allowed to make it up too. We just create the story as we go and figure it out as we go. And that's part of the fun. So there is Storm King's Thunder as it sits. It was a grand run, and I'm looking forward to what we do in the future, which it sounds like is Tomb of Annihilation. So onwards and upwards. Take care, all.